met Dr. Poncetti, but I've read about him through the years with great interest. Ned Amendola, knows him very, very well. We talked about him a little bit last week, and his story is really certainly an inspirational one. So, it's a huge loss for our state and certainly for the university. Looking backwards, it was a good weekend. We were certainly pleased to get out of Madison with the win last weekend. Happy about that. On the positive front, I think we came out of the game pretty healthy. But just to keep our string alive, instead of having the flu this week, we've got 5 players that have an exam this afternoon right during the middle of practice. So, just another Tuesday with some key players missing. So anyway, but that's, I guess, better than the flu if they do okay on the test. Captains will be the same. We've got Pat Anger, AJ Eads, Tony Moriarty, and Rick Stanzi will be our captains again. And heading up to East Lansing, it's kind of pretty similar to last week or a lot of the weeks we've been playing. We're playing another very tough opponent in a tough environment, and it's a tough opponent who's playing very well right now. And it was certainly the case the last couple of weeks. It was certainly the case. We went up to State College, and I don't see this game being any different. So it's just going to be another tough football game for us, tough challenge, and we'll get to work today and see what happens.
Kirk, when the first BCS standings came out on Sunday, were you surprised to see that the last unbeaten team in the Big Ten, a team with a resume as impressive as yours, was the lowest among all the unbeatens from major conferences? Impressive resume. Those are your words, not ours. And apparently, not many people are buying that. So. I thought there might be a question about the BCS. I thought that might come up. Just took a wild shot. Somebody told me there's a 3-hour program about college football in the BCS on Sunday night. Can't imagine anybody watch that one start to finish, but if you did, that's good for you. But fortunately, I got some guys helping me out upstairs. Had somebody do a little research. Just a quick one for you. The teams that were 6 through 10 last year in the initial poll. Anybody want to take a shot where they finished?
Out of the poll?
3 moved down, 1 stayed the same, and 1 moved from 10 to 1. So the conclusion there is that you could go up, you could go down, or you might stay the same. So that's about all I took out of that whole thing. And, it's October 20th, so I'm not too worried about any of that stuff right now. It's almost kind of amusing, but apparently it's helping fill airtime, so that's great, and it's good for college football as far as people paying attention, talking football. So I think that's all good stuff.
It brings about questions, though, on national talk shows that and schools fairly or unfairly get ripped. I'm sure you don't care much about that, but it certainly fires up the fans.
Yeah, which that's good. That's good for the game. That's a positive thing, and we weren't in the talks last year, but I had half an ear out there listening to it, and a lot of good discourse, a lot of arguments about the Big 12 in particular. I remember that being a hot topic of conversation, which team deserved to be where. And the bottom line really is, if you win all your games, then it doesn't matter, with the exception of Auburn that 1 year, whatever year that would have been. So that's probably about the only safe way to get through it, and that's still no guarantee, but it's probably the safest path. Odds of that happening for anybody are really pretty minimal based on recent history.
Hasn't there always been arguing, though, whether it was over a split national championship? Is it heightened because of the BCS?
I mean, well, I remember as a kid, Penn State and Texas, that 1 year. I think the president, whoever it was at that time, might have been the same president that was in office when we beat Michigan State last time. We were in East Lansing. But anyway, that president called Texas's locker room, then called Penn State, and there's
that was Nixon.
Yeah, everybody's kind of mad about that in Pennsylvania, but so it's part of college football. It's probably a healthy thing. I think it's probably why the BCS exists.
Does it ever frustrate you, though, that it seems that with some people, they almost value winning with style points over simply just winning?
Especially this time of year, I think that's to be expected. So, I just, it's pretty simple. If you win, you feel pretty good. When you don't feel so good. And that's good enough for us right now.
How do you keep your team grounded at this point, or is it a challenge at all, or do you?
Yeah, I think just the things we talked about, that BCS stat. That's the only reason I looked it up. I'll share it with the team. That's pretty telling. And the other thing I think all of us need to remember, we're not even halfway through our conference play yet as a team. So we have such a long road ahead of us right now. It's natural for people to talk about it, think about it, but you know, the best way for us to get anywhere is just try to take care of this week, and that's about all we can handle right now.
Well, that said, I'm sure they're going on campus, getting pats on the back, free beverages, and their families are calling them, telling them they're going to go to the national title game and all that. I mean, how do you bring them in and just share with them things like, hey, here's the film from Arkansas State? So,
well, I mean, we can just look at last week's film. There's plenty off that thing to correct, and you know, that's. But the good thing, it's a little bit like winning on the road. We have I think, a fairly veteran football team, so that's a starting point. You know, we talk about these things year round about how you're going to handle, you know, praise, how you're going to handle adversity or challenges, those types of things. And but it's usually the message is better received typically with more veteran guys, and then those guys are can be a little bit more vigilant in terms of keeping everybody on the right page. I think, you know, because there's so much that goes on away from this building. But it's a mindset, and you know, I said this after the Penn State game. It's usually tougher to deal with, you know, some success, and it is a tough outing.
Shifting gears from the BCS talk, and you had talked before about, you know, thinking the offense was on a path where it was going to improve, and certainly we saw what Tony could do last week. How important is he to, I guess, that, you know, the offense continuing to progress as the season wears on?
I mean, he's a marquee player, and you know, historically we haven't had a lot of those, but we have, I guess. But you know, when we have them, it sure helps. You know, and it's not the end all or be all, but you know, when you have a guy like that that can contribute in a special way, it's a real advantage. Sean Green did that a year ago for us. You know, Gallery did it in his own way. Kading, Brad Banks, you know, go right down the list. So you know, we've been lucky. We've had Dallas Clark. We've had 5 guys that nationally acclaimed for doing what they did. And, I don't know if Tony will be recognized in that way. It really doesn't matter. But you know, he as a player, he can do that for you. So, you know, when you have a good team, and then you add a couple guys like that really can give you some extra octane out there. And you know, I think the last 2 weeks we've certainly seen how he can impact the game. And then, as I've said before too, there are a lot of things that maybe aren't as visible that, you know, you're not going to notice that he's helping us out either through blocking or the attention he draws. It might help open up some other receivers, and that's, you know, those are all positives. So it's, you know, when you have a guy that's a good player who plays well, you know, it's one thing to be a good player, but he plays well consistently. You know, it really helps you.